Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. And my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm glad you're here. And today we've got a very special episode. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it this time. I mean it every time, actually. But we're going to be talking to Cyndee Dhalai. Is that Dhalai or Dhalai?
Dhalai.
Dhalai. And she is an author. She's got a couple of books out. And this truly is a global experience because she's not even in the same country as we is, or as I am anyway. I'm in Seattle, Washington. And Cyndee, where are you at the moment?
Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean.
And say that a little slower because I have no idea where that is.
Trinidad and Tobago, it's in the Caribbean.
Oh, Trinidad. I know that name.
Yeah.
Never been there. What is the weather like there? Is it kind of a jungly kind of thing, or is it mountainous? What is the area that you live in?
It's called the tropics, and we have two seasons, a dry season and a wet season. Right now it's the wet season. This is when you get like hurricanes and stuff like that. And though we say rainy and dry seasons, there is a lot of sun during both seasons, but we call it the rainy season because it's predominantly rain. And like I said, we have lots of storms and hurricanes and stuff during the rainy season, which usually runs from about the end of May to December.
So half the year it's raining. That's Of course, I live in Seattle. The whole year it's raining here. So
okay. But it's a rainy season, but today, we get a lot of sun in between. But we just say rainy season because the rain is predominant during the season.
Yes, indeed. Well, I have an associate who works out of the Philippines, and she tells me the way the weather is just crazy there. It's hot and it's raining, and I'm not used to it being hot and raining at the same time.
Yeah, that's what we get a lot sometimes because it'll be rainy, but it's also very humid because it's hot. Also,
well, I got to ask you the most important question of the day, which is, do you have snakes there?
Actually, there are snakes in the country, but you don't see them around as much again with development and stuff like that and thing whatever. Though I do have snakes in my yard, what we call grass snakes and stuff like that, but I actually like snakes. So
oh, you're like my associate, Rochelle. She loves all kinds of animals, and she'll even pet a spider, which is just like frightening to me. So anyway.
Actually, I used to catch snakes to show my children when they were younger.
Oh, and did they scream like a little girl? I would have.
Actually, no, because I would catch snakes and frogs and
all the things that live there. Now, you've lived there a long time. You lived there your whole life, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And so where did your parents come from? Were they there as well, or did they move there? And then
no, they actually are from Trinidad, but their parents, my grandparents, came from India.
Ah, very, very good. That must be a story in and of itself of how they got from India to where you are.
That was during the indentureship period. After colonization, then there was slavery when they brought in all the slaves and stuff to work on the estates because they were predominantly sugar estates in Trinidad and Tobago. So they brought in slaves, and then when the slaves got emancipated, they brought in Chinese workers, and they brought in a lot of people came from India during the indentureship period, and that's how most of my relatives came during that time.
That's a whole book that needs to be written because that's part of history that most of us don't have any idea about.
Yes,
that it was slavery and then indenturedness and all of that. and all of that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting. But you became an author over time, and tell us about your journey to become an author.
Actually, I've always written, but mostly poetry in my mind. I didn't really start writing poetry until 20. I didn't actually start writing until August the 25th, 2022.
And why
But
the specific date?
because that was when someone very close to me asked me a question and asked me to focus. And when I did focus on the question they asked me, what came out was a poem. Because they said, don't think about it. Just write whatever the answer is to the question and tell me the truth. And what came out was a poem. And now, like I said, I've always loved poetry. And I write in my mind all the time. It's always spinning in my head. And then, but life takes over, and that is not something that you encouraged growing up, because I grew up under the East Indian culture, and writing wasn't a career. And the time I was growing up in is that, writing wasn't a career, and that was not something that you did really. So you kind of and then I got into teaching, and I got married and had kids, and built a home, and you were busy back and forth because my husband worked shift, and so everything was being juggled and stuff like that. And even though I do always write in my mind, I never really put it down to paper except on a few occasions, and that was it. But then in 2022, this was after my husband died, and my friend asked me to focus and to write on this specific question, that I just let everything out. And what came out was a poem. And from there, I started writing and writing and writing. And I was surprised because just this clicked in me. And like what I held inside me came out. And
I got to ask you, the individual who asked that question, are they still in your life?
Yes, he is.
And have you ever asked him what motivated him to ask that question?
I know what motivated him to ask that question.
What
Because
was it?
I was confused about something, and he said, listen, you need clarity, and I need clarity. And so he said, focus on this one question and let me know what you think. And I did.
And that
And
opened up an entire Pandora's box of your
yes,
abilities to write, that you didn't know that you had the ability. You knew you had the ability to think about it, but you didn't know about the ability to put it down on paper and make it coherent and to make it work. Would that be fair?
and no, I always knew I could write because I write very well. And like I was a teacher also. And I helped a lot of people like with their thesis and like writing essays and stuff like that, and creativity. So I do know how to write because I taught children how to write essays and things like that. So that was part of my teaching. But I knew to myself that I could write because I would write to myself sometimes, like what I dream and stuff like that. But whatever I wrote, I would burn afterwards.
Why would you burn it?
It was very personal. And sometimes, I don't know, I think it was just like you would go through these phases, and then I'd write, and all these books would pile up, and I'd be like, oh, no.
Uh, well, I'm glad that whoever this person is got you to do that, because that sent you on a path that changed you from, and you're not from being a teacher to a writer. Now, are you still teaching?
No, I had to retire medically unfit in 2010 because I got really, really sick, and I lost 4 years of my life in a fog of illness. I don't even remember being sick, but from my medical records and what my family told me, those 4 years are like a fog in my mind.
Well, I'm glad you're not foggy now.
Me neither.
And you've written a couple of books. First of all, I wanted to say publicly that I'm sorry for your loss.
I know. He died on Christmas Eve in 2011, 2021. Sorry.
On Christmas Eve.
2021.
Oh my, that's going to mean a lot for every Christmas Eve going forward for the rest
Yeah,
of your
it
life.
does actually.
And that makes it really tough. And so your first book you talked about grief, and the second book you also talked about grief, but in a little bit different way, didn't you?
Yeah. The first book is a poetry book. It's called Grief is a the first book is called Pieces of Me Touch My Soul by Cyndee. And that is the poetry that came out of me on different topics, like about creation and the divine, and about loss and love, and what I see through my eyes in nature, and the lessons that we get when we look through our own eyes. And the second book is called Grief is the Price You Pay for Love, Run into the Fire, Discover Me in the Ashes. That is by Leon. That's a pseudonym I use. It speaks about when I had to confront my own grief and loss, and all the things that came up that I had no idea would pop up. And at that time, when I wrote the book, which was in November 2023, that book just came pouring out because I was in a difficult time. Because after my husband died, I thought I was managing really good. And I thought that, okay, given all I've been through, I was strong. I could look after everything for myself. I could do this stuff and thing. And I knew how to talk to myself, and how to see things as they are. And I thought that I was, as things came up, I would feel it and I would acknowledge it and I would manage it. And then in November 2023, I got a setback that kind of pushed me to the edge, and everything came crashing down. And I said, look, sit down. And I said, the only way I know to express myself is to write. And I sat down, and in 1 month, I wrote this book, Grief is the Price You Pay for Love. And even when I read it afterwards, I was surprised at what came out, because a lot of things came out during that grieving process. When you face yourself, when you face grief, came up a lot of things that I've never heard people talk about.
Such as?
Well, first, we know grief is messy.
Oh, yes.
Is personal. Grief is something that does not follow a set pattern, and you cannot follow steps to say, okay, I will deal with it, the denial, the anger. It fluctuates. And it is not something that you can heal. You learn to manage it. Because healing involves, like you get a scar and everything comes back good together. You get a cut and everything comes out. And you might have a little scar that reminds you that this happened. But when you grieve, how do you heal from that grieving? Because it's not like if you can distance yourself from it, you can't cover it up, you can't bury it. Because it's always inside of you. Because when you connect to someone on a deep level, and now remember, this is dealing with a loss. Now, loss can be whether you're married to someone, or whether you're in a relationship with someone. It could be a friendship. It could be the loss of a family member. It could be the loss of a pet. It could even be the loss of a job. All those losses do bring with them grief. And because that was a part of your life, it remains instilled in you. You might think, okay, I'm not going to put this in my mind. But the memories remain in you. And they do pop up sometimes when something that flows along the same tangent comes up. So I was looking at the loss and the absence of part of me, that should put it that way, because it is a part of me. And when you lose someone who you love, in this case, it was someone you love. When you lose someone you love, you hold those memories inside of you. And it remains instilled in you because they may not be physically present. They live in you and in your memories. And what I learned is that you have to learn how to hold the person memories or treasure what you carry with you, but also learn to create space around, because it's not we anymore. It was you and me, and it was we, but now it's just me, and I am still here. It may sound harsh to some people, it may sound like impersonal, but that is how life is. I am still here. I am still present. And there must be a reason why I am still present. And I will treasure and I will honor your memories, and I will remember that love in me always. As long as I'm here, I will remember it and I will carry it in me. But at the same time, it does not mean that I don't live, because I am still here.
Well, and we're going to talk about that when we come back, because
Yeah.
I'm convinced that your husband would say to you, if he were to talk to you today, and he probably does anyway, he would say to you, Cyndee, I want you to live your best life and to have the most fun and to really enjoy yourself. Speaking of enjoying yourself, if you are a real estate agent, if you want to be a real estate agent, if you think you want to be a real estate agent, but you're not doing very well at being a real estate agent, I have a guy for you that you need to talk to. And his name is Ophir, and he's right here.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We've got a great guest for you today. Her name is Cyndee Dhalai. Am I close?
Dhalai.
Dhalai. Okay, I forgot the A that was in there. Okay. Dhalai. And she is an author. She is a teacher. She's also suffered, as we all do, moments of grief and loss, because not everybody gets to stay with us forever. I remember when I was early 20s, I was at Thanksgiving dinner, and my mom and dad were there. My aunt and uncle were there. My grandma was there. My other grandpa was there. And we were all sitting around the table. The other kids had all left. And I looked at each of them and said, there's going to come in the not too distant future when none of them are going to be here. And it took a few years, but that came true. They're not here anymore. But I still hold them in my heart, and I value who they were, and I know that they want me to live my best life. Is that how you feel about grief and rising up from the ashes and doing what you do?
Yes, actually, I do, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the idea that, somebody is gone, and if I do things that maybe I'm being disloyal to their memories, or if I am feeling so much hurt and anguish in me that, I don't feel I could go on without someone. And sometimes you may even feel as if, this is where I am, and I'll just do what I normally do, and that's it for the rest of my life.
Well, that seems like no fun at all.
I know, but sometimes that is a stage that some people go through, and some people remain stuck in that, because I've seen that all my life, in that some people lost like somebody early on in life, and they just continued working, looking after children. They never really put themselves in a position where they could explore all who they are really, because when you do think about it, the fact is You didn't come here by mistake. You are not here to make up numbers. Everyone who comes or who is in creation, who has been given life, has a reason for being here. You have a purpose, whether it's whatever job you do, or you have, because we all have a higher calling, we all have a higher reason to accomplish.
Yes, we do. And sometimes people that we love, their reason for being here is over, and so it's
Yes.
time for them to move on. But your mission and what you're here to do hasn't been fulfilled yet. And you had a couple of books that needed to be written, and you had teaching that needed to be done, and you had kids that needed to be raised, and all that kind of good stuff, right?
Yes.
And so that becomes a very important aspect of who you are. And we lose, the interesting thing, Cyndee, is that as I'm getting a little older, I'm finding that I'm losing a lot of people that I did not think they were going to go. My high school sweetheart, who I hadn't seen in 50 years, she passed away. My best friend in high school, he passed away, and stuff. So, is it something that we get used to, or do we just kind of get numb to the losses that we experience?
Actually, I know exactly what you're talking about, because in 2022, people I went to high school with, and I'm like coordinator for my year group that went to high school together, we lost 7 people who went to high school with me that same year. And then the following year, we lost 5 people. And, so then I lost neighbors who were not very old, actually. They are around my age, actually. I lost 3 of them in about a year and a half. And so I think on one level, we do become numb to it, especially with COVID. A lot of people died with COVID, and people after a while, they got numb to it. But I think part of us also remembers, we are shocked initially, but then we kind of go into, well, people pass and stuff like that and thing. But what we have to remember is that there is a season for everything in life. And when your season is up, and when your time here, and when your purpose is done, then you move to a higher place.
Oh, exactly. As an example, I just got notification today that my 50th high school reunion is this year, and they used to, when we were having our 20-year reunion, it was in a great big ballroom, and and now at the 50-year mark, we're going to rent the corner booth at Denny's, because there are like 7 of us left.
Seriously.
Because that's the thing, is life is, our bodies are finite, and
Yes.
we go, and our bodies don't work anymore, and sometimes they don't work for a while before we go, but then we get to go, and then we get to go home, but there's a whole new experience that's waiting for us. Do you buy that? Do you believe in that?
Yes, actually, there's a whole new experience waiting for us, because, well, I should actually say this is my sixth life. So,
That's right. You actually have gone, you've had
last line 5 times.
yeah, you're not like a cat. You haven't gone 9 times, that died 9 times, but
I'm
you've had
allergic to cats. So,
but you have had NDEs, and which is a near death experience.
yes.
Because if it was a death experience, you wouldn't be here. So it's
Yep.
near death, but you've experienced that several times, and because of that, you have a different philosophy than some, and that
Yes.
that have emerged out of that, haven't they?
Yeah, I do.
Describe it.
Life is impermanence. And what I have found is that, for me and me, is that we should never let anyone's expectations or opinions define our own expectations and who we are. Because honestly, we don't even know who we are in full. And I I've always preferred to look through my own eyes at life. And what I did was I chose to see life as not empty, because it never is empty. If you think of a glass of water, when you do drink a glass of water and you say, okay, it's done, but if you turn the glass upside down, you'll still see a drop coming out. Where did that drop come from? It was always there. And that's how our life is. We can hit rock bottom, but it has a ledge. And then you can find your way out of anything. And there is something that is in you that is more powerful than you can ever believe. And that is what I found out. Because like we had talked about before, I did flatline a few times, like when you see on TV, if you're looking at a movie or something and you hear the sound and you have to be resuscitated. That happened to me a few times. And I remember the first time it happened, I was diagnosed with lupus. My body has lupus in it, but it's very severe. And I got confirmed and everything else, did all the testing and stuff. And the medical experts from the London Lupus Center recommended that I try Plaquenil, which was a new drug at that time. And seeing as I was allergic to some medications before, they had me in ICU and they gave me the drug. Of course, being me, I said, okay, but I don't like being confined. So we were sitting outside in the waiting room just so I can get some air. The doctor came in and he said, what you doing outside? So I said, I just wanted to be, I'm good, And then he said, Cyndee, I think we need to go back inside. And as soon as we went back into the ICU, they said I flatlined.
And you don't remember any of that part?
What I do remember is looking at me on the bed and seeing all these doctors around me and stuff like that and doing stuff and seeing my body jump when they tried to resuscitate it. And afterwards, now I was out for like 18 and a half hours and they weren't sure what would happen because it was so sudden. And when I did return, I have to say return, because I was looking at myself in the corner of the room watching everything they were doing. And when I did return, and I told my husband and the doctor about the thing, and I was asking for a certain doctor because I remember this doctor and I remember his name on his name tag, on the tag of his pocket. I remember his pocket was torn. I remember he had pens in this little pen pad that they use, you put inside of your pocket and you put all the pens so your shirt wouldn't get dirty and stuff like that and thing. And I remember, and I described him and exactly what he said and what he did. And they said, well, you couldn't have, how you know that? You couldn't have been aware of that because technically I was dead, right? Yeah. And so I described it. And then they said, well, you shouldn't really talk about that too much because it's not something that most people know. I am very open, so I talk about everything. But the problem with that was that during those 4 years when I was in a fog, I was only my body was present basically, but I was not here in that I don't remember a lot of things that happened. I'll just have periods of clarity, like after I flatline or something, for a little while, I might be present and then my body will just take over again and another illness or another thing would happen and I would be in a fog again.
So do you remember, because a lot of NDEs will talk about the light or a tunnel, or did you just stay near your body in the area?
Well, the first couple of times I did stay there because the first time and the second time I was in the room watching them and stuff like that, and then I sort of disappeared until I woke up, right? And then, but the last couple times, it was about 5 times actually. So the 4th and the 5th time, what I do remember is that I was there and there was a presence next to me. And it was a man, obviously, it was a he. And he was saying, okay, again. So I said, well, yeah, again,
he's kind of like, look, I'm really getting tired of having to come into your room and talk to you.
I know it sounds
about
kind
this."
of strange sometimes, because like after the second time, I was told not to talk about it and not to tell anybody. Well, my family knows because I did tell them, and the doctors, well, a few of the doctors knew about it because I did ask them things because that's what I remember, just to confirm what I saw, right? So I did remember. And I remember the fourth time, and he said, well, and I said, okay. And I didn't really see a light, to say like a light or a tunnel or anything like that. What I did see was gold light. I didn't see white light. I don't know if that's different, but I did see light. It was like a gold light shining all around. And it was like you were moving through space, actually. And then I came back to myself. The last time, however, was a bit different because that was the worst flare-up or episode I had with lupus.
Well, let's hold that for after the break, and we're talking with Cyndee, of course, and Cyndee Dhalai, I think
Dhalai.
Anyway, and we need to take a real quick our halftime break, and we'll be right back with her story about how she came back from her last time, and the guy, her guide, or the angel or God or somebody was saying, "Oh, come on, you got to stay next time. You can't come back anymore because you got too much stuff to do." I think, but we'll find that out when we come back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And we've got a great guest for you today. And when we started the show, and I didn't give you the teaser, as it were, but this fine young lady has died, like 5 times. I don't know anybody that I haven't heard of a situation like that, but I do have to tell you a quick story. Can I?
Yes.
My sister-in-law had a congenital heart defect, and she was not supposed to live into her 30s. Well, she made it into her early 40s, and she was at the University of Washington ICU. And because of technology, the way that it is, they were able to keep bringing her back. So she died, and they would bring her back. She died again, and they would bring her back. And she died again, and they would bring her back. And then this happened for over the course of a week, like, I don't know, 16 times or 17 times. They never talked to her specifically about what happened in between, but my brother-in-law, who was in the room at the time, when she came back for the last time, and then she passed away, she had this amazing look of, "What am I doing here?" on her face. It's like, I just left here and now I'm back again. I don't want to be back here. I'm happy being where I was. And she had a great big look of surprise on her face, and then her heart wouldn't work, and so she passed away. But so we don't know. Those of us that haven't had an NDE, or we can fantasize about it, but we don't know but you have got a better understanding of what goes on, at least a little bit on the other side, and our death isn't the end.
No, that isn't the end. And like, I do have medical records to show that I did suscitate, I did actually die, like the doctor's notes and stuff like that in the medical record that shows I did actually, I had to be resuscitated after 12 minutes, after 5 minutes, whatever, depending. And now the last time, like I told you, was the worst in that I was totally out of it. And my body got blood toxemia. The whole body was blue black and it was really, really bad. And my blood was infected and stuff like that. And then I had to go to the nursing home because they're the only place that could treat me. And I spent about 3 weeks there. They couldn't give me drugs or anything because I'm allergic to all drugs. Right? So
That's horrible.
all they could do was like monitor like what was going on. And they did try, I think from what I read, they did try like, because the toxemia was so bad, my legs and everything was getting blue black and my stomach, everything. They did try to drain stuff out of me. And then there came a point of time where they couldn't find a place to put in a needle to drain anything out of because everything was collapsing. And according to what my husband said on the medical reports, every day I had to get like 13 pints of blood and platelets because I had zero. I had zero blood and I had zero, I was bleeding out everything and I have zero platelets. And they gave me a 5% chance of living. And they said if I went outside in half an hour, I'll be dead.
Wow.
That's how bad it was. And I do remember the last time in that I was looking at them trying to monitor everything and stuff like that and trying to find a vein because you can't put anything in me because the veins had collapsed, right? And they couldn't find a vein to like put anything in because they said, well, I had zero immunity and stuff like that. So they were going to try to do something, I think. And I remember just looking and then I just went up and there was someone next to me, but he was all in green. And he had like green peacock feathers, the shiny, shiny green peacock feathers. And I remember they were really iridescent and glowing. And we were going up. And afterwards, then I found out that when I was speaking to like this pastor who's a friend of mine, he said, well, the green angel, usually that's who they refer to as Raphael, because he has a green thing. So I said, okay. And I remember seeing this green angel with these green wings and stuff like that and thing, and going up, and I said, okay. And he said, no. And I was like, no. And he said, well, you're not done yet. You have to go back. And I said, but, because, you're halfway there. I'm moving up. I am like, it was like you were in space and there was like this, except I wasn't a person. It was a kind of light figure that had all the colors of the rainbow and I could see all around. I could see all the stars and the darkness and like you were sailing through all of that. And I was just looking at all these distant things, the darkness of the sky and the stars twinkling, and then in the distance you could see the planets there, and you're moving up. And I was saying like, oh yes, and then he came and he said, nope, it's not your time yet. You have to go back. And I said, really? He said, really?
Did you argue with him?
No, somewhat. You don't think to argue with him. I just said, really? I mean, because he was bigger than me, so I was like, you're still kind of like, you're still in your human mind, you're still like, you don't know what's happening. And I was like, really? He said, really? And I said, okay. And I came back and I just said, I came back and I got up, sat up on the bed and I pulled out all the tubes and I said, okay, I'm ready to go home now.
And you didn't need any more blood?
No, I never got treatment. I never got any treatment after that day again. I never went back to the hospital since 2013. I've never had any treatment for lupus or chronic kidney disease or any of the things they said I've had. I've not taken a single Panadol or had any occurrences of any illnesses since that day.
Well, now that you've had the opportunity to explore it and to think about it, why do you think they said you weren't done? Because your body was pretty racked at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you think that they said you're not done yet and you've got to go do? And then you suffer through the loss of your husband and other things. What do you ever wonder, okay, guys, you brought me back and you made me stay here, and then I died again, and now my husband's gone, and why didn't you just let me go? You ever say that?
I've never asked the question why. Even when I got ill, like I remember I got ill and they told me that I had lupus and stuff like that. And at that time I was in a wheelchair because with the lupus I kept falling down and my body was giving out in a lot of ways. And they said, well, according to when you have to retire in my country, when you have to retire early, like from teaching, I had to get you have to get medically evaluated before you get medically boarded, which is what they call it. When you retire, you get medically boarded. So I remember going, and this was before I got really, really sick. I remember going in and they said I had to speak to like 3 different doctors, psychiatrists and doctors, and get tested for them to, to make sure that I really was sick to be medically boarded, right?
Yeah.
And so I went in and I was speaking to, I remember I was speaking to one of the psychiatrists and she said, well, what? So I said, well, why not? She said, well, if I never, I said, why not? I said, things happen in life. That's how it is, Why ask God why? Because this is how life is. And she said, I wish you would talk to my patients and them and stuff like that and just let them, just see that, these things happen. And the only way you can get that is you have to work through it. And I got that, and I got certified sane by 4 psychiatrists, and I was married mine. So I guess I'm the only person who could actually say, listen, I'm not crazy, I am sane. And I have certificates to prove it. So
eventually you were able to get approved, and then
I got approved, and I was medically boarded in 2011.
So between 2011 and then you raised children and did the normal things, and then your husband passed away, and then this man came to you and he said, I want you to I've got a question for you, and then I want you to write down everything in this question. And that led to you starting to write books and stuff, which is how you found your purpose.
I kind of think that things kind of fell in place, because when I think back about it now, I've never asked the question, why did I have to get sick? Why did this have to happen to me? I never asked God that question. I never did. And when I was looking back at it after, and I said, I would not have started writing if this hadn't happened. And if this person hadn't asked me this question, I would never have started writing. Because right. I was thinking about, if my husband hadn't died, and I don't think I would have ever written. You understand what I mean? And then, okay, even if he had died, I would not have had the push or felt the impulse to write if this person hadn't asked me this question at this particular point in time.
And that's how that.
Like, I think because it's like I always said, but things have to be put in place. Nothing in life is random. Nothing in life is a coincidence. Things that happen in your life are supposed to happen as they happened. It may not follow the path that you want to, and we do have a choice in how we deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But that is why I was speaking to someone recently about a soul contract, and they said, Cyndee, what are you talking about? Now, I don't read, to be honest with you, I do not read a lot of these New Age stuff and, whatever. What I do know is what I feel in me. And when we come into this world, there is something that we have to do. There's something that we agreed to do as a being put into a human body, right?
Yep.
And we have things that we are supposed to do. Now, our soul is not there to tell us every step of the way, okay, do this, do that, whatever. No, no, no. You see, because we were given the freedom of choice. We are shown things, is how we choose or what we choose to do with it. You are given a certain direction to follow. Have you ever noticed sometimes something comes up early in your life and you said, no, that's not for me. And then you come
Never.
around
Never.
and
That doesn't that's not allowed to happen. That doesn't happen. Not for me anymore. Maybe it did 20 years ago, but
that's
now
what I
I say
mean.
yes. I
Yes.
say yes to everything.
Yeah, because at certain points in our time, you see, we have to come full circle to where we are supposed to be. We've made it's like your path. You know, your life journey has ups and downs and bumps, and you will go through potholes, and you will go down a crevice and have to crawl your way back up. But at the end of the day, you reach where you are supposed to go. Now, how you get there is up to you. It's either you fight or you look at the bigger picture.
And I will tell you this. If you don't do it this time, you'll do it next time.
Yes, you have to do it all over again. Because you see, every time, I don't know if many people believe in reincarnation or soul reintegration, which is what we call it, right? But you do have something you were created to do. And if you don't accomplish it in this time, what you did not do, you are going to come back and you're going to have to do it all over again. I think I explained that to somebody once.
Well, and but the interesting thing about that is that, by the way, your soul, well, we need to take this break. And when we come back, I want to talk about this because your soul is eternal.
Yes,
it is energy. It is everything. And it is interested in gaining more experience and doing things within life. And if you choose, and because we all have free will, if you choose not to, that's okay. You just get to
do it all over again.
You get to go and come and play again. And many of us have been here many, many, many times. We need to take a break. We'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And we got a great guest for you today. Her name is Cyndee Dhalai.
You'll get it one of these days. It's Dhalai.
Dhalai. And she is an author. She is a teacher. She was sick a great deal of her life. She lost her husband. She died 6 times. Wait a minute. Did you say she died 6 times, 5 times, or 6? Somewhere in there? Yes. And so she's got a unique perspective about death and dying. And so, Cyndee, I got to ask you, because of the experiences you had, which predates your husband's death, do you recognize that he is around you all the time and that he still communicates with you on a regular basis?
Actually, yeah, you do see it in small things sometimes, or sometimes you remember something that you're looking for that you didn't, and then so you say, oh, maybe, and then, yeah, you do. And then sometimes you think like, I'm doing something, and I think like, you can, out of the corner of your eye, you will see like a shadow, or you'll feel something with you. So yeah.
Does in your world, and I know you've written a couple of books about grief and your soul and things, does it lessen the grief knowing that he is still there with you even though he's not physically in the body?
It doesn't lessen the grief, it just gives comfort in that the fact that physically they may not be here, but in their presence and in their essence of who they really are, and on another plane, you do get comfort in knowing that They still exist and they still move about and they come to visit.
And sometimes they come to visit a lot because they're
Hmm.
in some cases, well, I think in all cases they're as close as your next breath if you choose them to be.
Yeah.
You can decide that they are.
Unless they have to go back and be reborn, then that depends really on when they go to sleep. If when they go to sleep, then they can visit you in that form or in that spiritual form.
And exactly. And in some cases, if you listen to, it's interesting. Do you know who Dr. Or not Doctor, but Neil Donald Walsh is?
No.
He said, or what Dr. Michael Newton says, who wrote Journey of Souls.
No.
And I highly recommend that book for everybody, by the way, because he says very similarly to what you are talking about. Only they go farther because
Yes.
in that book, people are actually, like dead and here, and then they have a life between lives on the other side.
Yeah,
And
they do.
there's a very it's very complex, and we all have jobs and we all have things that we do on the other side. It really is pretty remarkable if you're willing to get out of the humanistic way of saying, oh no, when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah. But they see that is how most people, because remember the mind wants to go more with what's rational or what's logical, and it's not open to acceptance and understanding the fact that you have a mind, you have a body, and you have a soul. And the soul is what really helps you find who you are and what your purpose is. In fact, I'm writing a book right now called Who Am I?
Oh, cool.
Connecting to my soul within.
When is that going to be?
I don't know. I am now finishing up the first draft of it. And today I was actually working at it before I remembered that, oh my God, I have a talk show with Kevin. So I was rushing because I was working on it whole morning. I finished the last chapter in it this morning.
Oh, very, very, very good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that book when it comes out, and you'll have to come back and we'll talk about that book as well.
Because that one deals more like with soul alignment and soul misalignment and soul reflection. And how do you know your soul really, and connecting to your soul and the questions we ask ourselves, and why do we go through things in life as we have? Because that is kind of like the essence. It's kind of like questions you would ask yourself about when you get frustrated. Who am I really? Who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing?
That's the greatest discovery of your lifetime.
Yes. And that is personal and that is unique and that is subjective to who a person is and what you're looking for exactly. And because I only actually started writing the book about a week ago. And like it just takes over. And I just started writing and all these things came out and the poetry and stuff like that and thing or whatever. And I just started writing because sometimes there are points in our lives when we do question, why did this have to happen to me? Why do these things always keep happening? What did I do wrong? What am I missing? And at those points in time is when you realize that your soul is calling out, you're giving you a nudge that, listen, you're not doing something right. That, listen, you're off track. That, listen, maybe you need to sit down for a minute and think about what you need, not what others need, or not what you're supposed, or some social thing you're supposed to fit into.
Well, and the reality is most of the time when you listen to other people about what you're supposed to be doing and who you really are, they're wrong.
Yeah.
It's for you to determine, to decide, your soul guides, because the folks that were with you, they were your guides, and they were there to protect you, and they were, and through your near death experiences and stuff, they probably thought it was pretty funny when you came out of your body and they said, oh no, sorry, you got to go back.
Yeah, because I keep telling everybody, listen, my angels, I'm quite sure my guardian angels probably give up on me a good few times and they keep changing all the time because they said, I can't keep up with her. So
Exactly. Exactly. And by the way, let's talk about your books real quick. And they're books of poetry, right?
the first one, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul, is a poetry book, and that's available on Amazon.com. And the other one is Grief is the Price You Pay for Love. Run into the fire, discover me in the ashes. And that's about, coming through your loss and learning how to create space around loss when you lose someone that you care about or you experience a loss. And that one is by Faye Alian, and that is also on Amazon.com.
And what's interesting is that sometimes even death can lead to amazing things. There's a gal by the name of Michelle Hernandez. She said goodbye to her husband one day, who was a bicycle rider, and he goes off in ride his bike, and she gets a call 15 minutes later to say that he's been hit by a car, and the ambulance was on his way. And so she gets in her car. She was only 5 minutes away, and she joins him going to the hospital, and he dies on the way, and which was a horrible experience for her. But the outcome of that was the Widows Club, which is a club for people who have lost significant others. It is a national club now. She's got events all over the country with people who have lost significant others for ways to deal with it, and also to help each other understand the thoughts and the things that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So the work that she's doing now, even though it was a very painful experience, was very important to her growth and to the health of other people.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's in the hardest times in life that you actually grow and you learn to expand yourself and you learn to become a bigger you. I'm not saying a better version. I'm saying a bigger you, because you expand in ways that you never thought possible, and you open up yourselves and you share a lot more with people when you do go through something that is, in a sense, life altering.
Oh, exactly. And I think all of us go through the experiences in life that are designed to get us where we say we want to go, and we get to pick. And when we nobody, there isn't at least in my frame of mind, and we've got to go, but there isn't an entity on the other side that says, this is what you are going to do, this is what I'm going to make you do, and this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
You get to choose, and you already chose before you even got here.
Yes. The thing is that you already decided. That's why I said you have made a soul contract. You came here, you don't really remember it, but your soul does, and they're trying to help you out to figure out, like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the hands you're supposed to hold. These are the hands you have to let go to. This is what you are supposed to work towards. This is who you are supposed to develop. These are the drawbacks in yourself, or I won't say flaws. These are the pieces in you that you have to adjust to move to a higher level. It might be anger, it might be impatience, it might be laziness, it might be self-doubt, whatever. But these are things you have to work through, and when you do work through them, then you can move to a higher level. But if you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and refusing to do these things, then I'm sorry, you're gonna have to come back and do it all over again.
And sometimes that's not a bad deal, because I like my life. I like being here. Yeah, it's fun and it's exciting. By the way, Cyndee, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they do it? And if they want to buy your books, how do they do it?
Okay, like I said, the two books, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul by Cyndee, and Grief is the Price You Pay for Love, Run into the Fire, Discover Me in the Ashes, that is by Faye Alian, which is also available on Amazon.com. And there is a website called fayealien.com, FEIELIEN.com, and you can reach out there.
And I want to thank you so much for being here. I've had a great time.
Thank you very much to Kevin.
Cyndee, thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin